Message received. Waking crew from cryosleep.
Top of the morning, my fellow carbon-based human life forms. It's me, totally human Jonathan, your friend. I am awake now as well.
Jonathan's a goddamn robot.
I hope they sent in my warranty card.
Get off my ship, bitch.
I think we're okay.
This is fucking great, man! Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? This is some pretty real shit now, man! Game over, man! Game over!
Crew extremely expendable.
Welcome to Region Free Season 4. It's been a while, guys.
It has. That was awesome.
That was
awesome.
so cool.
So it was no small amount of work either.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, these guys are amazing. So like getting everyone involved to do something like that is more involved than you probably imagine. And it takes a lot of work, and everyone really followed in directions really well and came up with their own like creative shit that really made it a lot of fun for me too. So make some noise for these guys. These guys are the real stars. And our absent comrade, Jonathan.
In the chat.
Funniest. I'm like for fucking real. Jesus Christ. AI Jonathan is so funny. I know it's not AI, it's text to speech, but still.
I had to learn green screen for this. That's my dog, Picard, popping out of my chest. And if you maybe blink, you miss it, but it was an Alf shirt with an alien cat coming out of Alf's chest. So it's a lot going on there in that. You might rewatch the intro and spot things you didn't see the first time.
Or you just might have to watch the whole season and watch it in real time, right?
Exactly.
So we are back on the 13th of each month for 2 hours of genre talk, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, because that is civilization. The rest of you, well, you need to catch up. Oh my God. There's already complaints about Hawaiian shirts. Listen, that's another argument for another time. The Burke outfit versus the Hawaiian shirt in the Aliens films.
Well, we've had plaid flannel for centuries. Just saying.
I will make an argument for the Hawaiian shirt because you're in space. It's cold. It's dark. You'd be nostalgic for the beach. A little reminder of, Florida, California, what have you.
I'm just thinking about like, well, what's going to be what's going to be enduring clothing in the future? And, I don't have like a problem with Hawaiian shirts existing in the future per se.
They're comfortable.
I just feel like plaid flannel is still going to be there because it's already centuries old. So, and Hawaiian shirts have only been around for like about a century, I think. So.
Yeah, but there won't be any trees left for lumberjacks, so flannel's going to die. So.
This is true.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all that.
I just think there's some irony involved in the Hawaiian shirt, and I don't get what the hell is happening in Aliens. So that's just how it is. And whatever the hell Winona Ryder was wearing in Resurrection.
And Dan should be relieved because nobody's complaining about his crotch opening up the intro. So
I know.
A lot of people were really excited for the crotch shot.
So that was originally going to be how I did the Alien 3 dive into the furnace shot with you, Dan. But then I got cold feet about it. But then I thought about it and I was like, our audience was going to want this. So I have to work it back in somewhere. So yeah, Dan's crotch opens every episode. And can life really get any better?
You're stuck with it for the next year, guys. My crotch. There you go.
Oh my God. So, hey guys, how did you spend your midsummer break? Actually, spring break. What was that? Late winter break?
We had a break.
We weren't here for a while. We didn't exist.
A month. Yeah.
Oh, I just worked a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Finally done working overtime, though. Thank God.
Movies and work. Nothing too exciting, but it's finally warm here at least. So. Doing some outdoor stuff. Everything's good. Watching a lot of movies. I think recently I've watched more than normal. So,
what's normal for you?
I mean, probably like at least 6 new ones a week, and then whatever else.
Yeah, so like probably with everything else, it's like probably 10 a week. That's normal.
Probably, yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah, like my brain would explode, dude.
So, I mean, besides, Close Encounters with Verizon trucks, my life has been pretty much the same workload as usual. Yeah. Someday my hand will work, I promise. But right now, not so much. But let's get right into the meat of the matter here. And I'm not referring to Dan's crotch again.
Go. 12 months of it.
So, spinning right off our intro, Dan, tell us about your. I know where this is going to go with you too, but go ahead. Tell us about your favorite alien clone, or your history of it, however you want to take it.
So I often cite this one as the perfect B movie, and that is the Roger Corman produced film Forbidden World. That is, I get a lot of people are going to watch it and just think, what do you see in this? And it's like, look, I'm not saying it is not Aliens by any means. That is an A film. This is a B film, but it is a perfect B film. Forbidden World, to me, just everything works about it. We have an older video on this channel, an obscurity report, if memory serves, where I deep dive a little bit more into that one. But that would be the first one that I would throw out as far as the clones go. And just a good time period in general for these films. I mean, we were not too far removed from Alien, and we had, Galaxy of Terror. We had Luigi Cozzi's Contamination or Alien Contamination, Norman J. Warren's Inseminoid. This was just a golden era, and I found almost all of these movies to be entertaining. Creature, of course, I know one of your favorites, Lauren. But Alan Holzman's Forbidden World, to me, is just, it's got everything going on with it. Pretty girls, fun special effects, gooey monsters. It's just, everything about it works. Even the stuff that went wrong, because there are some bad creature effects in that. There's a moment on a cliff, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, where it just flat out, like it got fucked up. It doesn't work. Doesn't matter. It's just that sense of fun is there. And it's one I always push on people when they ask me that question. Alien ripoffs, go watch Forbidden World. I actually prefer it in some ways over Galaxy of Terror, which I do love. But you know, slug monster, Joni from Happy Days. It'll traumatize you if you grew up with that show. So, yeah, Forbidden World would be the one I would throw out as something you just go out and see. And Creature, a lot of talk of that in the chat. You haven't seen that movie if you haven't seen the new Blu-ray of it. One of the best restorations I've seen, period, in the last decade. So check it out.
I love me some Creature, and that Blu-ray is insane.
Yeah. Seeing it the first time.
It's a completely different film, and that now people throw that around a lot. In this case, you really haven't seen the film. You saw a lot of black screen on the old test. You saw a lot of film grain, but there's an actual movie hidden in there too. And I like the old version where I couldn't see anything, but this is amazing. It's really, really, really worth it. And it's a cheaper release, so I mean, there's no reason not to buy it.
There's no actually almost all of these, as far as the Alien ripoffs, and you know that we got the underwater Alien ripoffs, Leviathan, Deep Star 6.
That's my wheelhouse right there.
Oh, so I've never talked to you about that, Sam. Are you? So you like the underwater?
I'm way more into the underwater stuff. Just because I grew up watching Leviathan and Deep Star 6. Like those were not on repeat all the time, but it got a lot of play in our house. My mom was really into sci-fi and especially loved Peter Weller, so of course we're gonna watch Leviathan. And then we eventually, also saw Deep Star 6, all on home video. But I think it's interesting that we kind of have that because of Alien and then the Alien clones, we got a new genre kind of out of it, a new subgenre of underwater alien movies.
Yeah.
Well, there was an assumption that Jim Cameron was making something along the lines of his darker films that had come before when he was making The Abyss. Mm-hmm. So all these ripoffs wanted to get ahead of it, but they all had the wrong idea what he was doing, which was making a 2.5 hour commercial for insomnia. But everyone else made films that are much more active and much more interesting. And Jim Cameron made a treatise about world peace and a wedding ring that somehow stops a hydraulic door. So, nah.
I have vague memories of watching The Abyss, but I don't think I've ever watched it like all the way through. Definitely not any time recently because I remember it being boring. And I'm like, where are the monsters at? So.
Yeah, it hasn't aged well. It's funny since the 4Ks come out, seeing people like, oh, that was what the hype was about. Yeah, Abyss is there's some interesting shots. Yeah.
The irony is that the 4K release got better reviews than True Lies and Aliens across the board.
Yeah, it's the better of the 4K releases for sure. But another one, if we're talking underwater, The Rift is one that not a lot of people talk about. There's not good, but there's another one called Lords of the Deep that's pretty bad. But if you're a completist and want to see all of the underwater-based alien clones, that's a good one. Yeah, it's always hard to pick a favorite, but again, Forbidden World holds a special place in my heart. So I'm going to do something that I don't often do on this channel and bring up one I have not seen that I want to see, and that's it's an anime. So Sam, you might know it. Lily Cat.
Ooh, I do not know Lily Cat. It sounds kind of familiar. Chris is watching in the chat. He might know.
Yeah, C.A.T, and it's Lily, I believe, if I recall, because I was, kind of refreshing leading up to this show, and I was like, well, I'll be damned, I have not watched that, but I'm not an anime guy, so I'm gonna have to rectify that. I haven't been able to do it before the show, obviously, but it looks like it's with cats. So
I do see cats on the box. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, xenomorph cats, I think. So I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to look into this.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm checking it out right now, and it says in the 23rd century, companies are now surveying distant planets for mining rights. The Syncam Corporation is investigating a relatively new planet and has hired deep space cruiser Saldez to at least I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, to shuttle company surveyors to investigate. Okay, so yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds kind of interesting.
It does, and so everybody in the chat that thinks I've seen everything, I have not seen this. Somebody asked the year. I should have wrote that down, and I didn't. I want to say it's an older anime, though. I think like 89. Could be wrong about that.
87, but yeah,
87. Okay.
Definitely an older one.
Oh. Well, somehow, some way, I'm going to review that somewhere. So stay tuned. First time watch.
On one of the many outlets that Dan has.
Somewhere.
Actually, I think the Lilycat is on the Roku channel. It says it for free. So there you go.
So Stone, do you have any favorite Alien ripoffs?
I got two I'd like to talk about real quick. The bad one, which was released by New World Pictures in 1986. I still remember the VHS cover because it says on it, it is the year 2035. Scientists have discovered a new life form. They're about to wish they hadn't. And this is probably the absolute worst of all the Alien sequels that came out at that time, called Star Crystal. Some astronauts, they find an alien, with a crystal as its life source on Mars. And so it begins to knock off the crew left and right. But there's two more survivors. But instead of killing the last two survivors, the creature decides to bring up the Bible on the ship's computer. And realizes, oh, no, I shouldn't kill them. I should befriend them and everything. So they end up playing Chinese checkers, and the alien calls the one guy a jerk. So
that's
now,
not Christianation,
for those of you,
by the way.
and for those old sausage factory fans, if you remember Rambo for Life, he gave like the biggest, loudest rant about Star Crystal I think I've ever heard in my life. And I ended up when I was in the chat one time, I decided to hit him and say, oh, hey, just to let you know, the Blu-ray's coming out. That should be your number one Blu-ray for the year. And Piz was like, what the hell is he talking about? Oh, Star Crystal. Now, the good one that I want to mention, and I saw it again recently, and it's okay. I reviewed it for Piz's website back in the day. But Life from 2017 with Jake Gyllenhaal and Rebecca Ferguson and Ryan Reynolds. And it's actually, I think, one of the better Alien ripoffs that we've gotten in the past 20 years. I mean, the budget is very strong. The performances are very good. The effects are terrific, even for CGI effects, I think. And I think it plays better than actually, some other ones that we've gotten in the past 20 years. Maybe some of the super low budget ones have been really released by, schlock factories or whatever you want to call them. The mockbusters. Yeah, maybe some of those. But those were the two I wanted to throw out there.
If you haven't seen Star Crystal, I do recommend watching Star Crystal. I should, like, there's movies make this sin a lot, actually, especially during this time period, where it's like, oh no, the monster's just misunderstood. Never mind that it just wiped people off the face of the planet, reduced some debris spots on the floor. He's actually just misunderstood, and he's actually a good guy. But the great thing about that,
Gar's the man.
Yeah, no, but the thing that's great about it is he's still kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And I can't believe the filmmakers. Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, I was going to say real quick, I can't believe in the end credits that the filmmakers had the balls to actually say filmed entirely in space. And this is all throughout when a song is being, and this is all throughout a song is being sung by Velma from Scooby-Doo. I think her name is like Indira Stevenson or whatever. Yeah, she actually sings a song during the end credits called Crystal of a Star. And the movie ends with filmed entirely in space.
So Cliff has been asking about Planet of the Vampires, the Federico Fridi film, finished by Mario Bava. It's a great film for what it is. It's a compromised film. It's kind of a little bit unfair to throw into the Bava catalog without a asterisk, but I consider it like the best possible version of that kind of schlock sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bava, like you said, but I still think it's a really fun movie. Bava hasn't made a bad one. Never did.
No. And at this point, he won't, unless, we can direct by Ouija board.
Yeah, I'd always double that up with like Angry Red Planet and Brain from the Planet Eros. And,
I'd go with just for shits and giggles. I'd go with Devil Girl from Mars, because I love me some Devil Girl from Mars.
Yeah,
a film with no plot whatsoever, but it's always awesome to look at.
I wasn't expecting that in Star Crystal tonight.
Yeah, no. Devil Girl from Mars actually tries to convince you that it's trying to do the the day or the Earth stood still thing, but it abandons it so quickly. It's like, we didn't really mean it. This is not meaningful.
Yeah, that is a very strange movie.
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome. There's a suggestion for people. It's not an Alien ripoff at all, but it's just a great film from that wonderful period in the 50s where they needed to fill 90 minutes somehow, so they did.
Yeah.
So, also, speaking of Alien ripoffs, who remembers Virus from 1999 with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Oh, yeah.
I had that surgically removed from my memory banks.
Well, it's back.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
I rewatched it. I rewatched it a few days ago as well. I spent $3.99 to rent it. Holy shit, dude!
And it's still a shit pickle, correct?
It's it's not great. It's not a good movie. Like there's legitimately this is an actual piece of dialogue where one of the guys is talking about how he's gonna buy like a private island with his share of the money, and then Jamie Lee Curtis's character goes, "With a beach." I spent $4 to hear that. But it is very similar. It's a similar setup for your Alien ripoffs. But what I feel bad about is like looking at some of looking at the practical effects and a lot of those animatronics, even if they are kind of like shitty, like Johnny Fives over there. It's still better than so much of what we have today. I feel so bad saying that, but it's true. It's still not a good movie. And it's like there's a part where the sea captain, like the captain of the Sea Star, he decides, okay, I'm going to go join the villain. I'm going to go join the villainous alien computer. All right, got it. So he goes and he joins forces with it. And so then he gets turned into a fucking cyborg. Meanwhile, all you have to do is spill water on these motherfuckers. Why are people just not pissing on all of the robots?
Well, it also kills aliens, according to Shyamalan, so that whatever.
That would be a great finale. They all just start chugging Gatorade and just pissing and taking out.
Yeah.
So, we're obviously missing the best alien ripoff of all time, and that's Jason X.
Oh,
touche.
Yeah.
Obviously, right?
Like, what's funny is like I don't consider it an alien ripoff, and that's also kind of what I wanted to bring up is like when are you your own space movie, and when or your own underwater movie, right? Because those templates are so similar, and then when do you become the ripoff? Oh, also, did anybody remember that Virus had fucking action figures?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently there was a second wave of them that were produced but never shipped to stores.
Oh
you
can figure out why very quickly.
You just have your shelf. I've always said I was going to do this and have a shelf of just that shit that they thought was going to be big. Like have my Congo action figures, Virus.
Lynch's Dune action figures, which were made.
Dune. Yeah,
existed, including the Sandworm.
Back then, you had a lot more merch. Everything had a cartoon that went at least a year. There's.
Oh man, I wish we had like that level of weird merchandise tie-in because it's like we don't get that anymore. We don't get the tie-in video game. We don't get the like many of the action figures. Also, the virus action figures have not gone up in value whatsoever.
No,
Just in case anybody was curious.
can own the whole line for about $15, probably.
Yeah, it's about it's about 15 a figure on average. Some are 20, but
I remember when I saw it. I saw it at the Cineplex Odeon in Edison, New Jersey, at like 11 o'clock at night. And I'm there, and it was actually a small crowd of people. Like, it wasn't empty theater at all. There was people there because people used to go to see movies. And I remember, like, seriously, not 15 minutes in, a large group of people got up, left, and I'm like, oh, they're out, But they came back. But they came back with like an exorbitant amount of food. And they spent the rest of the movie simply talking to each other and eating.
Ooh.
Not watching the film at all. It was just dinner theater to them. And that really pretty much says what the entertainment value of Virus really is, which is not very good.
Yeah.
I miss the Cineplex Odeon. It's an AMC dine-in theater now, and it's not the same.
So what do you guys think sets apart like a space or an underwater movie from being its own thing versus being like an Alien clone? Is that just ruined forever now?
I guess it depends. I mean, how you want to define an Alien clone. I mean, some people put the underwater stuff in a separate category because, space kind of a big part of, Alien. But I guess Forbidden World, that's like a pure Alien clone.
I think you have to have claustrophobia. You have to have body horror. Yeah. And you have to have the body count thriller element in there at some level. And I think that's that's close enough to me to be called an Alien clone. In the same way that, like, all slasher films are Halloween clones to some degree. That's not exactly fair, right? Like, Men and Knives by themselves don't sound like they owe anything to Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But from a cinematic point of view, I think there's an argument to be made that once you've gone there, once you've made Halloween or you've made Alien, everything that comes later is going to be influenced by it to some degree.
True.
Now, is something like Sunshine an Alien clone? No, but it has some of the elements. It has the claustrophobia. So I don't know. And in fact, I would say Sunshine actually is more of a Prometheus riff, except, not really, because obviously kind of simultaneous. But so I don't know. I'm less concerned with that as the idea that we go through these movements of people trying to catch fire a second time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's fascinating.
Pandorum came up in the chat earlier, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, those elements are there, but there's more going on. Sunshine, again, a lot more going on, but some wonderful movies to check out, and Star Crystal, and
for completely different reasons.
Yes. I'm gonna have to go back and watch Star Crystal, Virus, and
no. Star Crystal, go back because you'll have fun. There's scenes where the two technicians simply talk about the girl for like no shitting, like 9 minutes, and it is not aged well. So it's pretty amazing. I really recommend for just the drama. Forget about the alien, just for the drama of Star Crystal.
Yeah. I have the Blu-ray. I need to go back and watch it.
Why do you think we're just going to talk about Star Crystal all night?
We could just talk about Virus all night. That's fine.
No, we really can't. I'm trying to remember as little about that experience.
There's literally nothing to talk about. Like, everybody, and like I constantly got everybody's names confused because it's just like Foster and Woods and just Baker, and it's like I don't know who's who. I don't know who you guys are talking about.
I think Virus will be a better movie than Borderlands, Jamie Lee Curtis's new movie, because that looks awful to me.
What is Borderlands about?
It's based on a video game, so I don't know a lot about it.
That Borderlands.
Oh no, I thought you meant the Mexican satanic cult movie, which is a much better film, I'm sure, than that television series is.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is a movie, Borderlands, and it's Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Hart, Kate Blanchett. It's a very
isn't that produced by Eli Roth?
Directed, I believe.
Directed? Yeah. I knew it had something. It was long in development or shelved for a while, right? One of the two.
You watch it, like the trailer, I mean, and it really appears like it's not going to be good at all. But I could be wrong.
Whatever. I guess Eli Roth is one of those divisive figures still. He's actually not made a lot that I don't like, but people hate him, so I don't know. He's one of us though. He really does love the genre, so
Oh, he does. He does.
I find it hard to be too critical.
He's one of those guys that I got to meet at conventions before he was anybody really, and down to earth. Like he could be here right now, and you'd all get along with them.
Let's get him on here. Sam, you're in charge. Do it.
No, not it.
You might be able to get Adam Green. I don't know about Eli right now. Maybe Adam Green you can get on. Another really genuinely cool dude, whether you like his movies or not.
All right. Well, so I think that it comes down to the unlikely consensus is we should not watch Virus ever again, and that we definitely should watch Star Crystal every day of our lives.
But buy every action figure.
Didn't think that's where tonight's show was going, but apparently.
No lie, like if I ever go to a convention,
I could use a car action figure.
if I ever go to a convention with Jamie that has Jamie Lee Curtis, I will get her to sign a Virus action figure just for the trolling.
You would
you're
probably have
Just for the trolling.
But you'd have a one-of-a-kind collectible because I doubt she signed many of those.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that.
I know it's like the movie she hates the most, so.
I don't know. She's had a Perfect, I would think, would maybe be her most hated.
Oh, with John Travolta, where he wears a sock in his shorts when he's doing jazzercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think
horrible.
I would say Perfect would be her most embarrassing one. But I know she's not fond of Virus, so
yeah.
In Perfect, just when you think it can't get any worse, Boy George shows up in a cameo.
Yeah. That's probably the best part of the film. It's kind of like in Body Heat when suddenly it becomes a Frankie Goes to Hollywood video. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Anyway, moving on. So, film has long had a contentious relationship with television. In the 50s, it was widely believed that television would kill film because why would you go to a theater to watch something when you have entertainment being beamed into your house every night? I guess, it's now 70 years later and nothing really has changed. Certainly television is at a high point and film is at a low point, maybe for recent memory, but both have coexisted. But film does not, especially horror films, have not been shy about criticizing television inside their narratives. It sounds like I'm reading something, and I'm really not. That really was off the top of my head.
You're an author.
That I hate that word. But so films like Videodrome or I Saw the TV Glow or I Saw the Devil all have statements to say about television as a medium, but they're being said through the medium of the horror film. Another example could arguably be Cabin in the Woods, which takes a definite impression that one media has the right to criticize another, which is pretty fascinating. We'll get to like my biggest example of this, which is not, I think, immediately obvious, and I might have to defend to you guys, but
I believe you meant Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm tired. I worked all day. I took in a truck. Leave me alone.
That's okay. I just, Before you get a comment.
That Dan is my editor. So.
There you go. I got
it. Stone, do you want to start us off about?
Sure. I mean, most people when they think of horror films and television, I think probably Poltergeist comes to mind the most. But then again, we just did an entire VBV episode of that. So the one I wanted to bring up is actually, granted it's more of a satire, but I still think it counts, is Gremlins 2, The New Batch, which looks at the early days of cable television.
That's excellent.
Where everybody where everybody thought there was going to be a channel for everything, like the archery channel or
Yes.
and microwave with Marge, stuff like that. It's also, and that movie also ingeniously has a lot of colorization jokes. Like, yeah, supposedly Casablanca will have a happier ending if you see it in color, But and it was just making fun of how these cable stations would only focus on one thing, and now of course that's not really satire anymore. That's just the way it is, and we've gone beyond that with streaming and everything. But I remember when I saw Gremlins 2 in the theater in 1990, and I was thinking, so yeah, I mean, are we going to get like channels for skiing and stuff like that and everything? Now, I mean, according to Mike Judge's Idiocracy, in 500 years, we're going to have the Masturbation Network, keeping America baiting for over 500 years. Now here's Sweet Bang Tube. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I think Gremlins 2 is a perfect example of how it looked at cable television in the early 1990s. Definitely.
Yeah.
Gremlins might just be a perfect film.
It is a perfect film.
Now, you mentioned something.
It might be.
When you saw it in the theater, it's interestingly, you saw the theatrical version of the film, which had the Hulk Hogan scene when the Gremlins attacked the projection.
Hulk Hogan.
But the original VHS release did not have that scene. It had a scene in which there was video interference, and they were the Gremlins were messing with the transmission.
Mhm.
So it's actually perfect for this topic because of that scene. Also, you get a bullshit version of a horror host, obviously supposed to be Grandpa.
Right.
Yeah, but you have a legitimate horror star in the film, which would be more obvious. But that subversion, having Christopher Lee be like the mad scientist, but it's like it's very much like a Saturday midday UHF broadcast version of a mad scientist, but he's in the real portion of the film, not the actual channels. So good.
Oh yes.
Gremlins
Sadly, they
better
cut
than the original.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, that's true.
I'm with that. And sadly, they cut out a lot of stuff with Christopher Lee. But one tidbit I also wanted to add, there was this behind-the-scenes thing with Joe Dante where you actually see him as the director, where he based it off the TV director in The Howling. And he's constantly drinking Pepto-Bismol. It's wonderful. And just to let everybody know, in case you forgot, last Saturday was the 40th anniversary of Gremlins and Ghostbusters being released in theaters 40 years ago. And just seeing Joe Dante tweet and retweet like crazy over the whole weekend was a joy to me. It was an absolute joy.
Isn't Joe Dante just the best? I mean, seriously.
He is the best. Absolutely.
He is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention, because you were talking about what, one medium criticizing another medium. And so I decided to go and pick Stay Tuned, because look, I love Videodrome and I love The Ring, and there are plenty of other movies, but like Stay Tuned really gets overlooked because essentially, it's like part of the gateway into, for big horror, right? It's sort of like, very entry level. So if anybody hasn't seen this movie, it's free on Tubi, and it's got John Ritter and Pam Dauber, and they're married. They've got a couple of kids. But John Ritter's character is just obsessed with television. That and to the point where it's like he's really like neglecting his responsibilities as like a father. Well, more so as a husband and a father, because Pam Dauber's character is the breadwinner and she's like an executive. So they have this fight. She breaks the TV, and then all of a sudden, Jeffrey Jones from Beetlejuice shows up with this fucking devil TV that ends up sucking them into like TV hell, and puts them in a whole bunch of different bizarre situations that they have to like try to get out of. Otherwise, they die. Like, you die in the TV, you die for real.
It's like a good version of the end of Shocker.
I was gonna think about breaking Shocker as well, because I do love that movie, but everybody's seen it.
Stay tuned. I'm glad you brought up the Three's Company gag is so good.
I fucking watched this morning, like really early, and it popped me. It popped me so hard. Like John Ritter screaming of being stuck in the Three's Company set is amazing. And I think like what's kind of like depressing is that hell is just like Earth, you know, because the way it's set up, you know, essentially this cable company in hell works the same way as the cable company up here probably would, like having to meet quotas, except it's like for deaths essentially. But you know, you even got like a fucking intern. I'm like, I have to like this is just it's just Earth.
Yeah, John Ritter's so good too in that. What a great comedic actor. He did one, I believe it's the same director, called Skin Deep around the same time.
Blake Edwards with the glow in the dark condom scene. Oh, it's
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, brilliant. I was going to say about Stay Tuned. One interesting connection with that and Gremlins 2 is that they both have animated sequences by Chuck Jones.
Yes.
And it was like the very last animation he ever did. He did the opening and closing narration for Gremlins 2 with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. And in Stay Tuned, he did a whole segment where John Ritter is a mouse. He and Pam Delbert become mice, I think, and they have to, I guess, what was it, a robot cat? Am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It definitely was a cat. Might have been a robot cat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Worth mentioning that just before we completely abandon Joe Dante, because I know we were a little bit past it, but his Twilight Zone episode, the only thing that keeps the kid who can change reality pacified is to watch cartoons. And it's like unless that's unless that's the world, he doesn't want to be involved. He has godlike powers, but he only wants to live in cartoon world. Again, like Joe Dante is the fucking best.
And also
it's a good life.
Somebody, if you ever meet him or if you just see interviews with them, his love for this stuff, like that guy still has his inner child in him. Like the way he talks about some of the monster movies that he came up on, like that dude's just a monster kid through and through. And somebody else, like I wish we got more films from him. Anything we get at this point is a gift because, like most of his generation, he's getting up there. But even his weaker movies, that spirit, that beautiful spirit that he has is in those films. Every single one of them. So yeah, go watch some of the more obscure. Well, I guess not really obscure in his case, but lesser known movies that he did, and you will still smile.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, what about it?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go too obscure with this because it kind of has to be talked about, and that's David Cronenberg's Videodrome. It is kind of the ultimate when it comes to this this topic. And another movie, I mean, when I first saw it, I was very young, so I didn't really understand anything about that was going on, but I was captivated. And over the years, it's never been a movie that I watched and thought like, okay, that's going to come true. And it feels like it kind of is in a lot of ways, not, TV so much as, the smartphone is kind of doing it, but very prescient in kind of that influence of media and what it would do to us. I love the Marshall McLuhan inspired character, Brian Oblivion. I don't want to ruin the movie. Sam, did you get to see it yet?
I've seen it before. I just didn't have I didn't have time to do a rewatch, which sucks. I have the Criterion version, so
okay. I don't
really
want
to get around to it.
Spoil everything for you or anything, but I mean, for the longest time, and I kind of alternated, it was my favorite David Cronenberg movie. It's just it's weird because you got the beta, and these cassettes, it's dated and shockingly prophetic at the same time. And Howard Shore's score, because he doesn't get brought up a lot, very underrated. You don't hear him mentioned as much as you should. But yeah, I mean, this predates internet and the computer boom. Cronenberg is just a fucking visionary. Just watching this movie, it still blows my mind every time I sit down and watch it. And it's about technology kind of replacing evolution. The technology over the natural world and how it's changing us. It's a wonderful movie, and you still have the insane fucked up body horror that you want out of David Cronenberg. I mean, the stomach vagina is pretty wild. I remember seeing that, and again, I was very, very young when I saw this movie, and just thinking like, what the hell is that? I'm captivated. I don't know what the hell I'm watching.
And now Dan watches nothing but
stomach vaginas.
What is that, Dad?
When I lost my virginity, I'm like, it's not supposed to be there. I don't know what's going on. James Woods lied to me.
That's not the only thing James Woods has lied to you about.
One of my favorite actors of all time. Like, that dude is just batshit. The Boost. I'll throw that out there. Not a horror suggestion, but James Woods is one of my favorite actors of all time, and never better in this.
Oh, he's excellent.
He plays great villains.
I'm sorry,
He does.
Pillows.
Great villains.
Oh, villains. I was like, pillows. Sorry.
No, great villains. Yeah.
No, but like the animated Hercules movie that Disney put out back in the day, I mean, he plays Hades perfectly. Hades looks like James Woods.
So my second
Cop is another good one. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's good. So my second favorite film of all time is Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
And if you read the screenplay for Natural Born Killers by Quentin Tarantino, there is no mention of any of the visual stylings that Oliver Stone added to the film. It's completely a straight drama about two lovers, serial killers on the run from the police who get arrested and escape. It's very straight. Does it have a sense of humor about it? Sure, it has that Tarantino, like, edgy early 90s thing to it, which is not just Tarantino's obviously Avery as well. But what Stone decided to do with it was do the first kind of postmodern satire. He embraced the concept of the television aesthetic as it was being consumed and then exaggerated it to tell the story. There are segments that are sitcoms. There are segments that are art house films. There are segments that are exploitation films. There's that the credit sequence I love, which is Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis driving their car, but it's very obviously a rear projection that keeps changing images, and we have images from what are clearly mock monster movies of Godzilla, but mixed with cornfields that are oversized, and the perspectives are all wrong intentionally. But we keep having this quick cutting that at the time was impossible. There'd never been a film that had cutting like that. It revolutionized editing because it was digitally edited at a time when no one even had considered that as really kind of an aesthetic. It was a possibility, but it wasn't as aesthetic. And the film becomes about channel surfing through, like, there's a meta side of Natural Born Killers, which is that you as a viewer are a participant because it's as if you keep changing the channel to get away from this story, and the story's on every channel. It presents differently, but it's on every channel. You cannot escape it. You go to your like Inside Edition show and it's hosted by Wayne Gale, right? But and it's still there. But you go over and on another channel there's an anime-esque cartoon which is still telling the story. And I think it might be the most interesting view of like how media has changed us, in that the more we become accustomed to constant barrages of visual information, the more we're becoming lulled into the same story, the same experience. We don't have separate lives. We have this shared experience within the box, right? Which is why at the end of the film, when Wayne Gale is up against the tree and he says, wait, you can't kill me. Someone has to be here to tell the story. And, you know, Woody Harrelson says, the camera's the witness now. And that's the ultimate point, that we, the audience, because that camera is on, just became complacent, and even we're as much a player. Like, if we wouldn't watch, none of those murders occur.
Yeah.
And I think that movie needs to be reevaluated every 10 minutes, because that's the attention span of that film. But it's brilliant because it has more to say about how we consume modern or postmodern information through television. But it's interesting that it could only really work as a film, right? And if you have never seen Natural Born Killers on the big screen and there's ever a repository screening near you, go. Because you've not experienced that film in its full bombast unless you see it on the big screen. The only shame I have is that there was never an IMAX release on that thing, because it's the perfect IMAX experience movie. That never happened. Because it's all about overload.
I haven't seen that movie in so long.
It is so ridiculously good and has not aged a day. There's nothing that's aged in that movie.
Perfect movie. Get the 4K just came out. I agree. It's kind of a shame because it's be a perfect one to re-release in theaters right now. And what a time for movies around that time, mid to late 90s.
Can you think of another time in the history of cinema when a guy wins an Academy Award for a serious war movie, and what is it, 6 years later, releases the most counterculture experiment in satire imaginable?
Mm-hmm.
So violent it had to be cut for to not get an X rating. So just such an overload of sound and fury, which is kind of what television is today, right? But it wasn't, by the way, when it was released. Television was still fairly tame. I think Cheers was still on the air, or just off the air, right?
Yeah, 95,
Mid-90s.
yeah.
So we're talking about a different time, but today, in the world of streaming television, oh my God, Natural Born Killers completely told us what was coming. And it also told us what it was doing to us as consumers.
Yeah, that was one of those movies I saw way too young. It's like one of those movies you see on premium cable, like, oh wow.
Didn't know what I was gonna get. I remember seeing that almost back to back the same year with Larry Clark's Kids. Boy, did they take chances around that time.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Rough double feature.
So I think really horror might be one of those rare genres that can comment on other media successfully, because it's so expandable, right? Like Western has to be a Western. You can lightly layer in other things, definitely, and you should, because at this point, another story about a ballroom brawl is not going to do anyone any good. Or a property dispute, oh, we want your cattle. Oh, please no. But horror, because it's not defined by a setting or really a character dynamic or even a structure, because again, you're putting it's something like I Saw the Devil and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre exist in the same genre, which is insanity, right? The two more different films don't exist, but yet they fit perfectly in the horror thing, and that allows you to do things with satire and with exaggeration that you couldn't do anywhere else. And I think it's really cool to see one media comment on another. And I wish to God there was one screenwriter that had been handed one of those fucking superhero movies who had taken that approach. But none of them were brave enough.
No.
Well, superhero movies are dying off, so
Yeah, it's done.
at least maybe now we can get some other more original things.
You're gonna I feel like have that one last Hail Mary play, because I think Deadpool's gonna make a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm totally. I mean, like, I'm totally on board for Deadpool and Wolverine, but I do enjoy those first couple of movies.
Oh, did you see the new popcorn buckets?
Yeah, I did.
the just taking the Dune bucket to the next level.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, so Star Crystal and
Natural born killers.
well, I was gonna say stay tuned. I was gonna be more
Natural.
charitable.
Yeah.
We got to slow down the pace. This is that point in the rock show where all the heavy songs are out of the way and the power ballad is coming. Okay, so everyone put on your serious face for a second because we got to discuss something a little bit more down tuned. I mean, we should have known it was coming. 98 years old.
Fucking ridiculous. Just fucking kept making movies. Just fucking never stopped.
And always mentally just there. Like he never. There's an interview I think with Joe Bob Briggs, one of the drive-in shows, I believe, that was not even a year, something like that, and he was still sharp as a tack. Like he could recall any movie he ever produced. He had stories. What a legend. I mean, if we had a Hall of Fame, he would be a first ballot. I mean, just that.
Fuck that. We need to name the building after him.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Roger Corman goes beyond genre. Roger Corman goes beyond cinema in a serious sense in the American experience.
Amen.
Roger Corman came up in a business that wouldn't have a part of him, so he made them anyway.
Yeah.
Think about this. How many producers' names can you really name?
Not many.
I mean, yeah, he was a director as well, but I mean, this is a guy whose legacy is that independent cinema, while it existed before him, he took the monogram model, the Poverty Row features, and found a way into the mainstream with it. But by the late 50s, his Poe adaptations were competing head-to-head, dollar per dollar with anything that Hollywood was putting out, both creatively and commercially. He made Vincent Price into a guy who is probably past his prime into a new prime that was a higher level. People forget that Vincent Price was a 30s bit actor. He was not the guy we think.
Yeah.
Those Poe adaptations, which a couple of them are Lovecraft adaptations, but those Poe adaptations set a new standard for American independent cinema. Not even horror, cinema.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Price credits Corman. He's like, yeah, I mean, he revived my career. Yeah, the type of actor he was, which is an amazing actor. Like I don't think it happens without Corman. That would have been
look before that, and you see in the early 50s to the late 50s, he's producing very, very cheap features. The original Little Shop of Horrors is a great example of a no budget production.
Yeah.
They had a flower shop and an apartment set, and 6 actors who weren't getting paid.
Yeah.
When you look at what he inspired, whether it's the H.G. Lewis or Sean Cunningham or any of those guys who made films and then became producers on the other side, there is no cinema as we know it today without Roger Corman. It doesn't exist. Everything you love. There is no John Carpenter without Roger Corman. There is no Jack Nicholson without Roger Corman. There is no Jonathan Demme without Roger Corman. Maybe those guys would have found some way in, but you know what? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. One man changed an industry that is at the center of American culture. I wouldn't be here without Roger Corman. There's no way my channel, there's no way Piz would have started Sausage Factory. It all goes back to Roger Corman.
Oh, yeah.
Forget George Romero. Forget even Hitchcock being involved in horror. It's Roger Corman.
Roger Corman.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I figured you'd hold a grudge because he also brought us James Cameron, but
we're not talking about that. No one has a perfect batting average. But he put him in the right place. That's the thing.
He did. He did. But I mean, my God. I mean, some of you out there watching this might have specific things that you think of when you hear Roger Corman. I mean, again, the Poe films, my God. I mean, I can't even imagine not having those. Mask of the Red Death, Fall of the House of Usher. I mean, I love every single
Hit
one.
and the Pendulum is a stone cold film masterpiece.
Pit and the Pendulum. Yeah, I mean, I love them all. It's not Halloween without the Poe films, but just the people that he influenced that you wouldn't even necessarily realize. Maybe they don't even realize, you know. And it's wild. You bring up like the Poe films going head to head. For the most part, nobody's talking about what they went head to head with. Like
The
Corman
only thing else
stuff
on the map is Hammer.
Yeah.
And in fact, most people lump them together as one thing. A lot of people think Vincent Price was a Hammer star. I think the casual fans, and that's not at all true. But AIP was a different monster entirely, and they were also the first company to bring Italian horror into America. Think about that. This guy is. Forget about the Mount Rushmore. He's the Lincoln Monument of horror.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I'm glad the man made it to 98. The world's not the same without him. But you know what? He was treasured, and he knew he was treasured. And that's an amazing thing.
Oh, yeah.
The more transparent versions of him from later generations, your Charles Bands and whoever, they've all done great things. I'm not taking anything away from them. But they stand in his shadow. And
absolutely.
There's no way out of his shadow at this point.
No. We all do to a degree. Like you said, there's podcasts you wouldn't have without Corman.
Mm-hmm.
And just everything from the B movie side of it to some of those obscure new Concord films at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like he always found a way to entertain us, to predict trends, to never really lose money on anything. I mean, he was also a brilliant businessman, because you got to remember how many times Hollywood changed during his run, and he's
able to keep pace.
Able to keep pace and still be involved in movies up to his death, which is I don't know how you do that. There's nobody else really that has done that. He's the Terry Funk of movies.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, the rest of what's happening.
Sam does. That was just
Sam. No, that's actually that's a good way of putting it. He was like the Terry Funk of movies.
Always adapted. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean like that. Like one of the earliest anime titles that I remember watching was like Galaxy Express 39, and it was somewhere in the 70s. He's an executive producer on that movie.
So yeah, Hellraiser. There's stuff that you don't associate necessarily with Corman, but he had his hands in there somewhere.
And it gets to the point where it's like early 90s, the direct-to-video boom is going on. And, Jurassic Park comes out, and everyone is making their dinosaur movie. And the only one who gets good reviews and sells a bucket load of VHS copies is Roger Corman with Carnosaur.
I love Carnosaur. Carnosaur and also Carnosaur 2, which Carnosaur 2 is kind of an alien ripoff. Weirdly enough.
It is.
Yeah.
Very odd Venn diagram.
But how incredibly astute you have to be to even be making ripoffs that win the day. You know what I'm saying? He could have shat out anything and just made money. That's not what he was about. And Stone just did a video that's done very well on the channel. By the way, if you haven't watched it, watch it again under a different account. Give it good numbers. About Cat Shea. There's another person. Would that career be where it was without Roger Corman?
No.
Hard to say yes, right?
And she's a gem. They probably definitely should have had a bigger career than she had, but he was able to foster that talent, and there's so many names. I mean, Sylvester Stallone's been thrown out in the chat, and some of the bigger names like that. But I mean, there's people on a technical side of things that he gave starts to that you don't realize. Like his influence stretches so far. There's movies you would never connect to him that you might not have had if it weren't for Corman. And just the way he was able to, I mean, the terror, I think we might have talked about that on a recent show, but like, oh no, wait, I'm going to get as much out of this as I can. We're going to get another movie out there while we have these sets. And also,
you have Karloff for 2 days. You better fucking do something with it.
And the terror is still talked about and watched to this very day.
Sure.
Something that he made with maps, essentially. That's just mind blowing to me.
In between the previous season and this new season that we're doing, one of the things I managed to do was finish all 200 plus episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which included movies like he made called like The Gunslinger and Swamp Diamonds and Night of the Blood Beast. And sure, some of them were bad, but they were all entertaining. And I would even give the same thing to Burt I. Gordon, who passed away last year at the age of 100. He's famous for his big bug films. But you brought up The Terror. My personal favorite Roger Corman movie is also Quentin Tarantino's vote for the best movie that Corman ever produced. And Sam and I did a video on it, which is Targets. Peter Bogdanovich. Corman plucked him from a movie he worked on called Night of the Prehistoric Beast or something like that. I have the name of it. I don't remember now. But and said, look, I have 2 more days with Roger Corman. 2 more days with Boris Karloff. Can you make a movie out of that? So he wrote Targets, inspired by Charles Whitman, the gunman that went up on the Texas Tower in 1966. And it's about the convergence of classic horror that Karloff was a part of with the Frankenstein pictures and modern day horror when a guy decides to just buy a bunch of guns and bullets and start shooting people on the California freeway. And it all converges at this drive-in theater. I mean, I'm so glad this was given a Criterion release because, this movie is awesome. To me, it's one of the 3 best horror films of 1960, along with Night of the Living Dead and Rosemary's Baby. But like I mentioned also with Kat Shea, he produced 4 films that she directed. I liked all of them. I mean, Strip to Kill, Dance of the Damned, Streets, and Strip to Kill 2. And all those are fun. I mean, we've all seen so many of Roger Corman's films over the years. Some we're probably not even know that he was connected with. I mean, I remember when I reviewed on DVD Verdict a pretty terrible sex comedy called Screwballs. And here again, he was
I love Screwballs.
People, just ape Porky's. Just make a Porky's ripoff. And they made a Porky's ripoff, it's so shameless. Oh, God.
The sex comedies, also the Sword and Sandal Conan
Deathstalker
ripoffs.
Yeah.
Deathstalker. Deathstalker 4 actually had a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. I mean, all of that stuff. And it's funny, between Deathstalker and Battle Beyond the Stars, I've seen that space footage from Battle Beyond the Stars appear in at least
17 films, easy.
At least, yeah. I mean, that was still being used into the late 90s. And the pig barbarians from Deathstalker, he managed to squeeze those in randomly in any other kind of sword and sorcery movie that he did. It was you could do a drinking game, honestly, with some of this stuff.
And just to show that, like, this is also a guy who would take chances. It wasn't just about ripping off what was popular at the moment. It wasn't about just finding the zeitgeist or getting an aging star to sell your movie. It wasn't just those things. Those all played a role. He was very aware. He was very aware of the tapestry he was working with. But I want to discuss one film in particular, which is a pretty deep cut, but to give you an impression of what Roger Corman as a human being was capable of tapping into just out of that pure curiosity that really defined him. And that's 1975's Darktown Strutters.
Oh.
If you haven't seen it, it's one of the strangest blaxploitation films you're ever going to see. It is almost undescribable. It is about a woman who runs a trike gang. You heard that right. Who goes to find her brother, who has apparently been kidnapped by a racist, probably satanic Colonel Sanders fast food conglomerate. But the whole time there is this playful sense of social satire and race relations built into the film that's both knowing and so unafraid. We live in a time when a film like this can't even really find a way back out because everyone would be upset with it. But it's this magical movie that had to be a big risk. Had to be. I mean, Dick Miller is in the film and uses a word that you cannot say on YouTube without having your video taken down. And it's a joke. It's meant as a big joke, and it's the punchline, and it's funny as hell, and we got into a place where that's not acceptable. So in a way, this wonderful creative genius, this madman entrepreneur that built Hollywood into something, for a time anyway, more than it ever deserved to be. Before the Spielbergs and the Jim Camerons and the George Lucases wrenched it back and turned it into something indistinguishable from a Happy Meal toy. Roger Corman was willing to take a big swing that was offensive then and would be more offensive now. And you know what? That is the most punk rock thing anyone has ever done, is have a career that was just about being independent, doing it yourself, finding people with passion who might not have known what the fuck they were doing, but giving them the opportunity, the backing, and the support to follow their dreams. He did that for a score of filmmakers and turned an entire generation on. We would not have The Godfather Part 2 today if we didn't have Corman. Because Coppola was given his chance, his first shot by who?
No. Well, I think, well, number one, props, because
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, like, Darktown Strutters, even I haven't thought about that one in a long time. I believe that, wasn't there a musical number in that, too?
There is.
Yeah, that is a wild film.
There is
early Stan Shaw, another character actor. That
there is
Corman
a
brought
kung
us.
fu fight in a house between a brother and a sister in which they take the house apart. Literally, at the end, the house is gone.
That one we're gonna have to do something with, actually, because like I said, I've seen it, but whoa, that was a long time ago.
You can find illegal streams of it out there. I'll just say that it's out there. I have an very old bootleg of it, but you can find it if you look hard enough.
Okay.
So
yeah, Darktown Strutters.
Darktown Strutters.
I was going to say one more Roger Corman. One more Roger Corman deep cut I was going to mention. I'm going to read it, obviously, but this was Joe Dante's very first film called Hollywood Boulevard. And stitched together from various Roger Corman New World features, this weird bit of B-movie madness has enough inside jokes for cinephiles, yet it's hardly a movie itself. Dante's debut as director with Arkish, Good Luck Charm Miller, fun as agent. That's Dick Miller, obviously. And guess who liked this? Joe Dante. Because nobody ever talks about his first film.
Now, I wish we had a Roger Corman today. Obviously, it can't be Roger Corman anymore, but I wish we had someone that bold that could take all these outlets that exist now, all the groundwork that's been laid in the intervening years, and just take Hollywood back from endless, Jason Statham action films and fucking like octogenarian fucking like dramas, and bring his comedies back. Bring horror films back away from people like Jason Blum.
Oh God, please.
You know, I mean, I wish we had someone that had that much robust love for the art to really bring it back.
I feel like Blum looks at himself as the new Corman. I know.
He had, in the beginning of his career, he had the financial side of it, right? But that's all he had, right?
Yeah, he's a business model and nothing else, as far as I'm concerned. You know, that's it. So he is about 1% of what Corman was. That's so not even close. But I mean, a lot of great movies have been mentioned. Stone Hollywood Boulevard is hilarious. I love that movie. It's just like you said, every genre. Some of the Corman comedy, Screwballs is fantastic. Ghost, I love Screwballs. He made us laugh. He made us cry. He gave William Shatner probably his best acting performance.
Oh yeah, The Intruder.
The Intruder, yes. Yeah, a bold movie also.
It was. Well. Yeah.
Corman, I mean, he may have jumped on trends for sure, but he also had balls. He really did. There's a lot of these movies, you know, something like Darktown Strutters. I know most of you have not seen or even heard of, but you know, that was a ballsy movie in 1975.
Well, how about taking all of the subtext of Creature from the Black Lagoon and saying, screw it, let's put it on screen. What you've always thought was the Gillman's, you know, reason for doing what he was doing in Creature. Let's make it obvious, and then tie social commentary about indigenous people into the film. I mean, he was never settled. There was never the easy version of a Corman film. Carnosaur is not the easy version of that. It is not.
No.
So it's kind of shocking that someone had brought that much, I don't know, fun, escapism, exploitation, but also meaning. He snuck the meaning in there.
He did. I can just imagine that polite, gentleman-like tone that he had. Is like, let's see the creature fuck.
There's gonna be a scene in a tent that's gonna get people's attention here.
Yes. Oh man. So yeah, I would say out there, do yourself a favor and kind of look through what there's a lot of it to choose from, and watch something maybe you haven't seen, whether it's a Hollywood Boulevard or if you can track down Darktown Strutters. Just watch one you haven't seen, because there's probably a lot of stuff out there that's going to be new to you. And yeah. Targets, absolutely. Well, Targets is a must watch. Targets and The Intruder. Yeah.
Do yourself a favor. Like, it's been a little bit. It's been a few days, weeks since Corman left us, but do yourself a favor. Whether you go out there and buy something, whether you rent it online, whether you go to a Redbox and somehow find something, because it probably isn't impossible. Watch some Corman. Watch some Corman to just think about not what we lost, what we gained by having him. And because we wouldn't be here without him. None of us would be the fans we are today without him. He's that big a deal. And again, 98 years old. We shouldn't be crying. We should be celebrating.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I especially want to celebrate the fact that in Carnosaur 2 you get to see Miguel Nunez Jr. have a slap fight with a dinosaur.
You're not gonna get that elsewhere.
No. Thank you, Roger Corman.
All right, so after the power ballad, the next thing that usually comes up is the fan favorite.
We've eaten our vegetables, now it's time for dessert.
Yeah. If there's a set of films that have galvanized the horror community pretty much across the board, you don't find many detractors out there. It's Ty West's X / Pearl, and now MaXXXine trilogy. The new movie's right almost upon us. There's a lot of expectation out there. Maybe too much, maybe not enough. I don't know. I'll let the panel decide. But certainly Ty West is one of those guys that I never predicted would become the mainstream savior of the genre. But there's been a lot of disappointments over the last few years, and he hasn't given us one.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys anticipate from MaXXXine? What do you hope? If they have any fears, let's just discuss MaXXXine.
Well, I want a completely different experience. I think, hopefully, looking at the trailer, I have high expectations. Going to this sort of what seemed like just a standard backwoods sort of slasher with the first one, and traveling back in time to Pearl, and now we're 1980s adult film industry, maybe some Bates Motel, Psycho 3 stuff, and the Night Stalker of all things. How that's all going to tie together is fascinating to me. I know, like Lauren, I am in the camp. I think Pearl's a much better film and more special film than X is, but I have enjoyed every single one so far, and I'm really eager to see them pull it off once again with MaXXXine. As far as trailers go, I'd say it's a 5-star trailer. There's a lot going on, and I would say out there, just remember, it's not going to be X again, and it's definitely not going to be Pearl again. So just go in with a clean slate and let them wow you with a new, unique vision. But Mia Goth, I love her. So I've loved her since Cure for Wellness, and I think she's just so captivating to watch. And part of the reason why X, a solid slasher film, is elevated, I think, is because of her. She's the X factor, as they say. So yeah, that's what I hope for. Literally, yes. How about you guys?
I saw X in the theater, and I fell in love with it when I saw it in the theater. And I still remember when we did our region-free episode on X. And one of the topics of discussion was, of course, about the geriatric sex embedded throughout the movie. In fact, that's how I closed the episode. I said geriatric sex after Biswell just says peace. Just throw that out there as the button for the episode. And I like Pearl even more. I mean, look, anybody that references Tita Berra and the 1916 version of Cleopatra, which unfortunately is probably gone forever. Look, kudos all the way, because the alligator in the lake is named Tita after Tita Berra, the original vamp of the silver screen in the 1910s and everything. I read a whole book on it about her. She's awesome. But I mean, Pearl is just like this great homage to old Hollywood and the Wizard of Oz, and just glorious Technicolor. And it's completely different than X. I mean, I think the difference is practically night and day. And I'm expecting MaXXXine to be a little bit of both, but also its own thing. I think that MaXXXine is going to go into some different directions. I trust Ty West enough at this point to give us something fresh and original and new and different, while at the same time bringing up a character that we've seen before from X. But, that was when she was first starting out in the industry, I believe. Now she's like a full-fledged XXX star. Is what it's suggesting. But is she trying to go mainstream and become a legitimate studio actress, or what is she trying to accomplish? I'm going to be very interested in seeing where it goes with that. And just to go back to Dan's point about Mia Goth, what was it? She also did Infinity Pool, which I know Sam and I liked. I know that Lauren didn't like it as much. Like, wow, what a trip. I mean, and just ever since I saw that, I've been wanting to do aphrodisiacs with Mia Goth, but unfortunately she's married to Shia LaBeouf, so that's never going to happen.
Saturn, I do think it's going to kind of be crime drama route as well. It's too bad Marilyn Chambers is no longer with us, because I think that would have been a compelling cameo for somebody that kind of went from the adult world to mainstream briefly. They could have gotten Tracy Lords, which quite frankly I think would have been interesting. But I'm really expecting her to stretch her acting muscles again. I mean, you can go back and look at our, I believe we reviewed Pearl on the channel, the old channel. I mean, she does some Academy Award level acting in Pearl.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that big monologue scene, and
that is the most honest I've seen a character written in a very long time.
Yeah, the mother too. I forget the actress's name off the top of my head, but she was amazing in that film. And again, my mind is blown that we get here from what, again, at the end of the day, is still a fairly standard slasher movie in terms of the plot. That's fair. If they can pull off a Pearl level film again with this, then I agree. It's gonna maybe cement it as a classic trilogy.
I don't think it can touch Pearl. I don't think it. Well, I mean, it's not hard. It's not going to be the same level of quality as Pearl. I feel like we're going to get another X. Maybe it'll be a little bit better. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of X when in the theater, because I had a really obnoxious audience that was laughing about Pearl and Howard having sex in that whole scene. And then, like, rewatching it by myself, just I'm kind of realizing it's like, yeah, this is actually like really sad and tragic, and not having the fucking assholes in the audience laughing about it. Yeah, this is a much more enjoyable experience. But I think the fact that X really does let you project a lot of your own sexuality onto things. I've realized I'm more of a prude than I thought, because, like, rewatching this, I still fucking hate Jenna Ortega's character, because she decided to be in the porno. Like, yeah, I want to do it too. No, bitch, fuck off. No, but I mean, this time it hit differently, because her boyfriend RJ, it's his movie. He looks at it as beyond like pornography. He's looking at it as like cinema. So for him, seeing his girlfriend, do this, even if it's just, in a dirty movie, that means more to him. But that's just me being fucking judgy and prudish over here. So.
Yeah, I felt bad for him in that movie. It was just like, oh, this is happening now, and you're seeing his soul just die.
I know.
That was probably one of the better scenes in X. Still gonna say it though, I still don't get the big deal with Jenna Ortega coming out of that movie. I mean, Mia Goth is way more just compelling and striking, and in my opinion, Cliff more beautiful. Talking crap as always.
2022 was like a fucking blight on horror, with fucking Jenna Ortega in every goddamn movie, and now she won't go the fuck away.
I think that star's gonna burn out sooner rather than later. I really do. Again, I don't hate her. I don't think she's been bad. I just, again, I do not see the obsession. We'll see what Beetlejuice does, I guess.
It's like she needs to go away and learn a new horror thing.
I know I'm gonna take heat for this, but stick with me for a moment. Sorry, it's one of those talks.
Okay.
So X is fine. X is fine for what it is. It's way better than average. It didn't blow me away the way that it blew a lot of people away in the community. But, it was a year when there was a lot of bad. And to get something that was genuinely good felt really, really, really like a big release that we needed. But here's the thing. X is like if Rob Zombie could make a real movie finally. It's all of his fixations, all of them.
Fetishes.
It's absolutely a film that he wishes he could make. And while there's a little bit of downplaying in me saying that, right? By the same rate, I just look at like the worst moments in X and sit there and go, oh, they want to make something schlocky. But then there's moments where a character plays the Fleetwood Mac song Landslide, and a ton of information is being portrayed non-verbally. And it's the last moment before everything's going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? There's some real filmmaking going on there, as opposed to just like, hey, Rob Zombie decides he'll wait forever for the cop to pull the trigger. It's a neat little cinematic trick, I guess, but it works exactly once, and then you're just bored with it. Pearl was a different monster. Pearl is as profound as the genre gets. It's not a simple film, and it's emotionally really complex. And yet it delivers all the stuff we want to. So I think it's just a situation, whereas I think that Pearl is such an improvement on X that they're not close. I think Pearl is one of those films that I will be still watching. If I have another 30 years to live, I'll still be watching it in 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. I will not be watching X in 30 years. There'll be other things that do what X does just as well, if not better. I might revisit it at some point out of the blue, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to make a point. Pearl's going to be one of those things that when I think of a number of scenes, not just the speeches, which is what everyone goes back to, the audition sequence is probably the most heartbreakingly honest portrayal of delusion that I've ever seen. It takes those scenes in Carrie, where all that self-doubt and self-loathing is so transparent, and brings it to a whole different level. I love me some De Palma, but I don't think De Palma ever nailed what Ty West did in that scene. I'm going to tie this together. That was going somewhere. I actually think the MaXXXine is going to fall somewhere between Body Double and Crimes of Passion. That's what I think the movie's going to be.
Yeah, I can see that. No.
I think it's going to be a view of the 80s adult film industry, and how once you're part of that, you can never really escape that into the legit world. And that path leads to tragedy. And the most abrupt form of tragedy, of course, in America is personified by the serial killer motif, right? I do think there's going to be something with her father, the preacher, trying to get her back, and probably a private investigator, something like that. That's all kind of the thematics that were set up in the previous two films, right? So I can see that be carrying over. But I think that on the whole, it's going to be a film about how once you make those sacrifices to your integrity and to your sexuality, which is the overall theme of this trilogy, there's a price to pay. The piper is going to come to call. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be that movie. I'm fearful because Hollywood is Hollywood, even our wonderful independents, because I'm not sure there is a Roger Corman to defend someone like Ty West from corporate interests out there anymore. Will he be able to make the pure version of that? Or is it going to have tons of callbacks to the previous two films, which I do not want. I want this film to work on its own. I want it to exist in its own sterling form. So, if it has to exist in the shadow of Pearl, it's going to fail. If it has to try and replicate how people felt about X, now that people are familiar with X and are not going to be surprised by any of it, it's going to fail. Now, when I say fail, I don't mean you guys are going to hate the movie. I don't think that's probably on the cards. I think you're all going to like the movie. But let's be honest, this might be a Return of the Jedi situation, whereas everyone had a film in their head they did not get.
Yeah.
And they're desperately trying to just love Salacious Crumb, right? And if that's the case, then it's a missed opportunity. And I'm a little bit fearful that we all have our expectations on 11, and no film deserves to be held to that standard. So if this comes out and is great but doesn't hit Pearl standards, cool. I'm going to be happy. It's going to be a great trilogy. We all win. I have a feeling it'll surpass X for me, but who knows? I just hope that it's its own monster and it's its own thing.
I have a feeling it will be. I mean, just watching X and then watching Pearl, it's just those two movies complement each other very well, watching them, back to back. And it makes me excited to see what the next part of the story is, even though I don't have an expectation for it. I just want to watch the continuance. So
yeah,
I think that's pretty much like the best place you can be at to go into something like MaXXXine.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hoping this is gonna sound weird. I'm hoping that this uses music like the previous two films did, and doesn't go for a very stylized 80s overdone version of that. Because music is actually very pop music, that is very kind of important to X, and it's also subtly important to Pearl. Watch Pearl again. It's an amazing film. Please, before you watch MaXXXine, watch Pearl again. I think your memories of X are probably enough, but Pearl, you need to watch again.
Yeah. Interesting question. You think this is it? Do you think he goes out with the trilogy, or are we going to try and bring Mia Goth into the 90s and 2000s somehow? Maybe not the same character, but
I don't think that there's a place to go with this past MaXXXine. I mean,
not MaXXXine probably, but
well, it just I just think it kind of just depends on what they do with MaXXXine, right? Because it's just that whole theme of a dream being deferred in both Pearl and almost in X, and she has to fight for that. And I'm just like, I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
I really
maybe a Pearl sequel set in the 20s or 30s.
I was thinking from Howard's perspective, maybe, because there's a long. Not that I want it.
No,
but I can see
this is a female-led series through and through. I don't think you can shift the viewpoint to males and it work.
Yeah, probably not. But that's what I think they would do.
It's not doing the annoying thing, whereas women are portrayed as virtuous and all men have to be portrayed as like monsters or incompetent. It's not doing that. But there's a very specific view of women and the struggle to support an honest sexuality when there's other pressures around that. And I think if we deviate from that to the male point of view, first of all, the male point of view, someone needs to make that film because male sexuality is not portrayed honestly on film or in our culture for that matter. Yeah. But this is not the place for that. It's not. You need, I mean, ultimately the series is about a woman who wants to become a movie star, who fails and goes to and ends up living in a shitty farm and watching a girl who's kind of getting her dream, but in the most lurid possible way happening. And it's about that jealousy, and that transfers to some extent because, MaXXXine is going after her dream, but is it really her dream, or is it the dream she's willing to settle for? Which is why that when you saw the screen I created for this segment, I do not want a life that's not worthy of me, or that's a paraphrase, but what the series is about. But if you settle for that, if just being on a stage stripping is enough, or being on a film fucking is enough because you're part of cinema, and that's not really what you wanted, but it's what you're settling for, and you're using your sexuality to get there, it's not saying you're bad. It's not saying you're good. It's saying there's a price. There's a consequence. Let's go look at it. And there's a dark side, right, that comes along with it. So again, I think that spirit of death in the kind of the Bergman sense is the serial killer. And this time we're getting a real serial killer. We're not just getting old people who go off the deep end, or a woman whose jealousy and feelings of self-loathing finally make her take out her family and everyone around her that she cares about. So, I mean, the thematics are all there for a great third film. Fingers, toes, crossed. If I could cross a rib, I would do it.
I'll find another Verizon truck for that.
Yeah, well, right.
Don't do that.
This isn't like a Halloween film where there is not the thematic setup to do something great.
Right.
The best you can do is have a spin on it that works. This is set up for a great ending. But the problem is that second film is so fucking good, I'm worried that it is The Empire Strikes Back, and we're heading into Return of the Jedi. Please prove me wrong, Ty. Please get this right. Mia, please make me forget about your performance in Pearl. Do it. I'm there for it. I want it. But I'm a little bit worried that because there's been so little of American horror that lives up to this incomplete trilogy at this point, I think our expectations might be out of whack, and I'm worried. I won't lie, I'm worried.
No.
I was going to say, I'm glad Jacob brought up some of Ty West's previous films. I mean, I'm ashamed to say that I still have not seen the films he made before X and Pearl. Do you recommend Innkeepers and House of the Devil at the very least to watch?
Absolutely.
Or do you think I should go ahead and just watch all?
Those two in particular, you need to investigate.
Those two in particular. Okay.
I love Innkeepers so much.
Yeah, you put it over House, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it very much if you're invested in the film and you're paying attention, it is a much deeper example of what I love in horror, which is the uncanny. The uncanny is the finest level of horror that can be attained, because it's not, you're not going to shake it. You're not going to be able to laugh at it. You can't have a bunch of annoying kids ruin a movie experience for you. The uncanny is too powerful for that. So a film like The Innocents from 1963, the reason that holds up is because it taps into that, not horror, not gore, but the uncanny. Innkeepers does that. House of the Devil is a lot of fun, and it captures perfectly a time period that's going to make you very nostalgic. And it's a good film on top of that. I don't mean to downgrade it, but Innkeeper, if you're actually serious about the genre, is, I think, the more important and the better film.
Okay. I'll watch those two at the very, very
You
least.
cannot go wrong with either, though.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's worth taking a deeper dive into his career.
Yeah. And also, again, I hate to, tout the library app. Like, go check out Hoopla, the digital library one. See if your library participates with it, because that's how I found House of the Devil. So you can watch it for free.
Nice.
I don't know about Innkeepers, though. I haven't had a chance to see that yet.
It's a very cheap Blu-ray if you also want to buy it. Like, very, very cheap.
So good.
Yeah.
But it's so subtle that I think if you just want Evil Dead 2 all day, you're not gonna like Innkeepers. If you think The Shining moves too fast, you're probably not gonna love Innkeepers. But for me,
something tells me I'm gonna love it then.
if you like living in a film world for a long moment, and being able, if you want to be able to taste the water they're drinking, this is that movie.
Okay.
All right, let's do one last thing. We're gonna do it in 15 minutes, guys. You ready for this?
No rush.
Something tells me we're gonna fail miserably at keeping to that, but. Dan Shine has wanted to do this episode, this topic, for fucking ever. So we're going to make him go last.
And it's going to be on a time crunch.
Well, it's okay, because one movie I'm talking about will do a deeper dive on Dead End Drive-In. So coming up in the near future.
Oh,
so
where can you watch Dead End Drive-In?
Dead End Drive-In, you can watch. Did I say Deep End? Dead End Drive-In.
I did.
Maybe I did.
Because I'm tired. I took it in truck. Leave me alone.
You can rewind and see which one of us botched on that one. But Dead End Drive-In here on Visited by Voices Network. And the one movie that I'll talk about will have a bigger breakdown with Dirk and Darren in the chat. So.
Dirk and Darren, shout out, man.
Put
in the work.
Yep, both in the chat tonight.
Is it a requirement for everybody to have like names that start with D on Dead End Drive-In?
Yes.
That is a requirement right now.
Stone, you want to lead us off because you're typing and it's obnoxious for me to call on you while you're doing it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should mute when I type. I admit that. I that was my bad. I'm sorry, everybody. I should have muted when I do type. Okay. But I don't type often. So, but, I was thinking, I mean, I brought up Jacob's Ladder before, but I thought of another one that I'd like to bring up real quick, and that's Darren Aronofsky's Requiem.
Requiem for a Dream is, I believe, what he was getting out there.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's about to happen.
Why is her name escaping me right now? From
Jennifer Connelly?
No. From The Exorcist.
Ellen Burstyn?
Ellen Burstyn. Yes. Where she becomes addicted to these pills, and she starts imagining she's on this TV show. The refrigerator comes out almost as if it's trying to eat her and everything. Yeah, I mean, that movie is all about really, really bad trips. And it's also, along with Sid and Nancy with Gary Oldman, which made his butt crack very epic. It's those two movies, when I saw them, I will never put a needle in my arm. Never after watching those two movies.
Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought Stone was freezing again, so I was like,
No.
I don't want to.
No. A true horror movie, though. I mean, Requiem for a Dream.
Yes.
Holy shit. The ending of that. Goddamn.
Requiem for a Dream and Train Spotting might be the most feel-bad double feature of all time.
Oh, God.
Although
that's an overdose right there.
I don't know if babies freezing the fucking chair legs and shit. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I saw Bliss from 2019, and so this is about this artist who has like been going through like artist block for a few months because she hasn't been taking drugs, and then the pressure's on because she needs to churn out work. So then she, picks up something called like Bliss, right? And apparently it's like a mixture. It's supposed to be like a mixture of cocaine and DMT, which holy fuck, that's crazy. But it becomes this thing where she, slowly becomes addicted, and she's hanging out with this other couple that also is doing it too, right? And it's subtly implied that they're vampires, or I was just thinking maybe zombies, because it's like, oh, you're eating the face off of people. I mean, this is very similar to, remember, like, oh gosh, it was like 10 years ago we had
The Florida guy,
assaults who ate that guy's face.
Yeah, under the bridge.
I was thinking. So, but apparently no, this was more of like a vampire allegory. Although it's like, no, I don't remember seeing any fangs. So it's sort of like looking at the horrors of addiction and how that basically turns you into a monster, So it's definitely, it's easy to understand. It has a fuck ton of blood, and the effects are really good. The acting's also pretty good too. Like, nobody's doing a bad job of it. It gets a little like, I think it kind of just spirals a little bit at the end. So, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Bliss. So she ends up like draining, killing the other vampire that had, that she was partying with, I guess. It's kind of ill-defined. And she finally finishes her masterpiece. And it's all of these like bodies, climbing up, right? And they're forming like this skirt that she's wearing. And then she's part of the painting. And then you go into the painting, and now she's a demon. And I'm like, that's a little much. You could have just style it back a little. It was already extreme, but it was an enjoyable movie. So would recommend.
Excellent. I want to go to a weird place with this because I have to. I was a big fan of the X-Files for its entire run, really, before it came back. And I have mixed feelings about once it came back in those 2 event seasons. But the original run, the entire original run, I love. Even the David Duchovny light episodes and stretches. I think for consistency, it's a more consistent show than we deserve to get for horror fans. And it was a horror show. It's not a science fiction show. Throw that out the window. It was always trying to fuck with you. There's an episode called Field Trip. in which Mulder and Scully go to investigate this case where there's these skeletons that have found, and the whole time they're being affected by this fungus that has hallucinogenic properties. And it's so great because it takes a show in which everything is real, but then there's things that, well, let's put it this way: the supernatural never ended up to be wrong, right? It was always right. And this is this episode where you finally can't trust that the supernatural is right because they're fucking high as shit. And it reminded me of those great episodes of those early 80s like shows like Matt Hooper that would eventually do this one-off episodes that were off the wall insane, that couldn't connect to the rest of the series very well because the concepts were just way out there. I mean, Matt Hooper was abducted by aliens in an episode of his crappy little PI show. Okay, that shit used to happen. Also, MASH every once in a while will just have an episode where Hawkeye dreamt some horrific shit that they'd never bother going back to, right? He'd be losing arms on a rowboat and shit, or talking about a woman suffocating her child so that the enemy didn't hear them in the bus. I mean, there was always like, so I love when television shows go crazy, but when that show went drug crazy for an episode, it was like the FBI go Easy Rider.
Yeah.
I'm just down because television is not my thing, right? It takes a lot for me to get into television. X-Files was a really, really specific time in my life, and it was the only thing I was watching. It did lead to Millennium, which I think is a better series even, and probably more psychedelic without the drugs.
Oh, yeah.
But X-Files was this wonderful thing, but it was a very specific thing. And for this episode to do what it did, I mean, at the end, they've overdosed so badly on these hallucinogenic fungi that they're carried away in stretchers while like Mitch Pileggi is like telling them, "You guys are dumbasses." It's the most amazing thing. And
Black Mirror, Lauren, make an exception. I think there's a lot there to like.
Maybe someday. So Dan, you have 7.5 minutes.
All right. So just to name drop a few that obviously I'm not going to deep dive in. Altered States, you could do a whole show on that one, but Altered States and Holy Mountain, if you're looking for a psychedelic double feature. I don't partake. I can't even imagine doing mushrooms and then watching a double feature of that. We take some bizarre, potentially wonderful, potentially horrifying places. But I throw those out. The Visitor from 1979, which is a very bizarre film that I love a lot. You got to kind of put your thinking cap on a little bit for The Visitor. I think a lot of people, don't give that one the patience that it deserves. But more recently, Beyond the Black Rainbow is, that's one to check out. Yeah, aesthetically, I think Love Witch, which I know you're a big fan of, Stone.
That movie's amazing.
It is. I can't believe it was made, in recent years. Boxer's Omen, another one I've talked about in the past. But tonight, just as a little bit of a preview for an upcoming Dead End Drive-In, I want to talk just briefly about what I think is not only a psychedelic horror film, but kind of an ultimate grindhouse drive-in film, and that's writer-director David E. Durston's 1971 film I Drink Your Blood, which I'll just kind of give the basic pitch for this one. But you get a satanic cult led by Horace Bones, played by Bhaskar Roy Chowdhury, a really interesting guy himself, and it's a satanic cult that disrupts this small town. And imagine Opie from the Andy Griffith Show if he was just so vindictive that because this cult disrespects his grandpa, he injects the meat pies with rabies.
That sounds great.
Not fully realizing what rabies would do to this already fucking nuts satanic cult. This movie is really the ultimate drive-in film. It's batshit. A lot of you out there have probably seen The Crazies, which also features Lynn Lowry. again, I have a lot to say about it that I can't do in 7 minutes, but you will get that on Dead End Drive-In. You just have to see this one. You get to see Lynn Lowry decapitate a woman with a turkey carver. It is just, I say it a lot, couldn't be made today. Just aesthetically, the storyline. I find it hilarious that that's what this kid does. I'm going to just take some chicken pot pies and I'm going to shoot fucking rabies in it from a rabid dog that I killed out in the woods.
And Dan, just because I want you to paint this right.
Yeah.
This film is definitely independent and it definitely was made for a budget.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks phenomenal.
It looks amazing.
This isn't what you're thinking. This is not H.G. Lewis. This is not.
No, this is not H.G. Lewis. This is very, very well made. And David Durston, again, didn't do a lot of films. I also recommend checking out Stigma, a lesser known movie that he did. But yeah, Sados, the sons and daughters of Satan. This movie makes me smile. I can only imagine the experience of seeing it at a drive-in back in the day. And we are going to cover this on an upcoming Dead End Drive-In along with Fight for Your Life. So that should be an interesting discussion. But I'll cut it there. I won't dive in deeper. But I mean, he took the Manson murders and blended that with a story that was in the news about kids in a third world country that had to be locked in a cage because they had rabies. It's every bit as psychedelic and batshit fucking crazy as you could imagine. And Grindhouse Releasing did a very nice Blu-ray of this. So yeah, check it out. I know Darren, what's up, Darren, in the chat. This will be a first time watch for him, and Dirk, I believe for you as well. So stay tuned. You got a couple shows to drop before this, but it will be coming. And if you know Fight for Your Life, that one is, that's a rough one. So that should be a good show.
Fight for Your Life and Devil's Express is the obvious double feature, right?
Devil's Express is on a short list for the future as well. We're trying not to double. Some might be a little more obvious, so they won't. No,
you guys are doing an awesome job of not going completely with what people expect, and I think that's why the show's doing well.
One last name drop because nobody said it. Blue Sunshine. Yeah. Jeff Lieberman and
if you're gonna do that, then we got to throw the Liquid Sky in there as well.
Oh fuck yeah! I love Liquid Sky.
I love Liquid Sky too. There's a lot of people who don't, but I love Liquid Sky.
I wouldn't recommend that to everybody, but I do enjoy it a lot.
If you have a deep opposition to the idea of having your head inserted into a speaker playing new wave music, you don't want to experience Liquid Sky. If that sounds like a great time to you, you want to experience Liquid Sky.
Me in my rhythm box.
Exactly.
It's awesome. I mean, just to see Anne Carlisle play two roles and she gives herself a blowjob, that's just utterly insane.
That definitely happens.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great psychedelic, not just horror. Some of this kind of falls into sci-fi as well. But most of the ones I mentioned, like, I don't think you have to be in an altered state to enjoy the movie. If you only get one though, like, what would it be for you guys? I mean, if it just that ultimate psychedelic film, we don't even have to just say horror.
Oh, like, is it Beyond the Valley of the Dolls? But for me,
I don't think I have enough experience to really give a good answer, to be honest. It's definitely like I barely dip my toe into psychedelic horror films, and usually it's just on accident. So I'm woefully ignorant about that subgenre.
I mean, The Lighthouse, Mandy. There's a lot of recent.
Around Space, I think, would count too, probably.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Jacob's Ladder, obviously.
Well, yeah, Jacob's Ladder. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
In that case, I would just go with Jacob's Ladder because I feel like that's a perfect movie.
Oh, wonderful movie. Lauren, I'm guessing Altered States for you, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it would be Altered States. Although, my last watch of Altered States was funny because I realized how little plot there really is. It's about a guy and his wife that don't talk. The rest of the movie doesn't matter. But I do love that movie a lot. Ken Russell a lot today, right? That's a thing.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Altered States and the Devils. There's a double.
I guess we are officially back, huh? I mean that in the John Wick sort of way. So this season will run for a year. We'll take a month off, and we will continue this boat rolling as long as you guys want us to. So keep watching, but do me a favor. We moved it over to Visited by Voices from its own channel for a few reasons, but the biggest one is simply we need the audience to be as engaged and as wide as possible. So if you think you know someone who'd enjoy this, please point them to us. If they hate it, they're not going to end up hating you. They're not going to hold you responsible. They'll hold us responsible. So you have nothing to lose. But for us, it's been a joy to watch Visited by Voices be able to bloom in the last few months under the network banner. So many of you guys are such great creators that are surrounding me. You're taking a lot of pressure off me, but you're also adding so much to the conversation. And it's easier. I'm hearing from so many people around the community that it's easier to drop in one place because too often, shows just slip through your fingers. There's only so much sand you can hold. It's been a joy to watch you guys grow. Stone, that last video with the Cat Shave video, I don't think any of us expected what happened with that video. And more dividends to be paid from it. Dan, every episode of Dead End Drive-In is bigger than the last, and people are really, really engaged. Sam, I feel like Shibi's being on this channel makes a lot of sense for both of us. I mean, our partnership has been real deep and meaningful for me. I don't know about for you, but having you come home makes a lot of sense.
No, I like being on the Visited by Voices network, but it's again, I should have called it Shibi VBs.
Exactly.
I know it's too late now. I can't go back.
As Fleetwood Mac sang, you can't go back. All right, everyone. Good night. We will see you in a month.
Internal log 0613-2024. The ship is a twisted mass of wreckage on the surface of an unmapped moon outside the boundaries of any charted system. The crew are dead. With any luck, this transmission will be picked up by the YouTube algorithm. And notifications will be sent, but who knows? This is Customer Service Specialist Sam, last survivor of the commercial data mining ship Imperium. Signing off. Good night.
The Visited by Voices Network is a consortium of content creators who explore genre art. Our collective aim is to jumpstart conversations in the horror community by providing unique viewpoints. We come to film and books with all the baggage and experiences from our everyday lives, and this allows us to see works through our own independent light prisms. At VBV Network, we reject groupthink, consensus, and social standards in regards to what makes narrative arts work. You may not often agree with us, but there'll always be a respectful place for you to add your opinion to the mix.
Shoot that ball from down comes that plane into the jungle.